I never expected to be in clothing. I got a letter from the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona about hunger across the United States. I was in the middle of my day. I stopped everything that I was doing and I said, I'm gonna read this letter. And it was a letter that changed my life. I had no idea that 46 million Americans face food insecurity, including about 16, 17 million American kids. And that rocked me. And so I said, we've got to do something. I've got to do something. I've got to get my family involved. And so it just started as one rack of t-shirts in the window of my old dance and yoga studio. We simply put a sign that said, every time you buy one of these shirts, we'll feed 12 meals through food banks across the United States. What is that thing? How do we change people's lives, through the acts that we do together? How do we connect ourselves to something bigger than ourselves? I spend my waking hours thinking about that, and how do we build real human relationships that aren't based on greed? So that's really why I created Fed by Threads. There's all these amazing things like we feed people and we support jobs, but the most amazing part is watching people realize, oh my God, I can change my life. And when people come in 6 months later, a year later, and they say to me, I've changed my whole life after being in your store. It wasn't just about the way they think about clothing, They're thinking about their food differently. Where does their food come from? Or maybe they're shrinking the size of the house they need, and they're just changing their life and they're changing their impact on the world and for the better, and then reducing some of the things that were having negative impact, getting rid of the sweatshop clothing. Really inspiring part of something I do is something as simple as when someone goes through and gets rid of all the clothes in their closet that they don't need anymore. How does that benefit my store? I don't know. But it's part of that bigger thing where someone's like, you know what? I realized I had so much clothing that I couldn't stand. But quickly people ask me, hey, it's all fine and good. You want to feed some people through food banks. You want to raise awareness. But where are those shirts being made? Who's making them? What are they made of? And when I looked into something as simple as a t-shirt, I was like, whoa, wow, sweatshop labor, heavy metal dyes, GMOs, pesticides in the cottons, farmer health, soil quality health. I was like, wow, something as simple as this t-shirt can actually have really negative impacts, and it can really reach the whole globe. But this shirt here, we worked with third generation Texas organic cotton farmers, planted the cotton in 2012, milled it in the Carolinas in 2014, cut and sewn in Carolinas in 2014, shipped to Los Angeles to a dye house to be dyed and then printed here in Tucson. That is seed to sown. That's dirt to rack. This is a eucalyptus fiber. It's super soft. It's incredibly renewable fabric that people love. Linen has been great. These hats are made out of upcycled scraps out of a company in Portland. We've got organic cotton that reduces our impact on soil quality, water quality in the air. It doesn't need pesticides to be grown. This shirt here is made of recycled plastic bottles and organic cotton. Nobody thinks of recycled plastic bottles except out in the Pacific Ocean, where there's a gyre the size of Texas of plastic particles. And so we can actually prevent plastic from hitting into landfills or into the oceans by turning it into clothing. Yeah, people think it's magic to say 12 meals are fed from every garment that's in here. So we support food banks who do not purchase food on the open market. Food banks collect, sort, and distribute food that was going to head to a waste stream, to a landfill from a supermarket that could no longer sell, say, tomatoes, or from a big food vendor who could no longer sell the item, but the item wasn't bad. So they are preventing food from going to waste and redistributing that. So they're not purchasing food. So we're able to help them cover the cost of 12 emergency meals to collect, sort, and distribute to families in need. People can wear amazing dresses and be fabulous, and also know where their clothing came from and what was in it. It's a really awesome feeling. And I think when people wear clothes that aren't made with sweatshops, they feel that difference. They know when they're wearing something that has some love in it, as opposed to just some person in a faraway land who had a horrible life working super long hours. You know, I can point to where people are making, you know, that's New York City. I can tell you every state and city where every garment's produced across the country here in the store. And it's really exciting. When we think about the food supply in the United States, about 30 to 40% of food goes to waste. This is in the richest country in the world, where you also have 40 million people facing food insecurity. So we decided to work with food banks to fill that gap and say, hey, rather than have food go to waste in the landfills, let's help get it to the families that need it. And so that was a big motivation on the food side. A lot of the store is our own Fed by Threads in-house line that we produce ourselves with tailors in New York State and California. But we also carry about 20 different designers around the country. We look for them, we seek them out. We go through Instagram and all these other channels to find producers in the United States who are also using sustainable materials, such as organic cottons, bamboos, hems, repurposed wood pulps, recycled plastic bottles, and all these other amazingly soft fabrics that people didn't realize could be turned into clothes. Now they're starting to find us because they know that all we do is curate American-made designers. So it's been a really exciting experience to connect with new folks around the country.
It's just kind of, you know, a feel-good, all-around shopping experience. I just don't believe in shopping anywhere else anymore. I have a very hard time shopping anywhere else anymore because, you know, I even shoes, you know, it's one of those things where it just bothers me knowing, you know, what kind of slave labor probably went into putting my shoes together. You know, I don't know who made them. And so I'm very lucky that he's here and that we can actually buy conscious clothes that I know who made them. You know, they've got the signature on the inside of my pants or the back of my shirt, and I know it wasn't, you know, slave labor. And that's just another awesome thing about just this place. Just everything. Just love it.
We can change the world. I fundamentally believe that. I don't believe that's an abstract idea or concept, you know. I believe that millions of people making choices together, you know, is what feeds change. And it happens many times throughout history, you know. And so the question is, what taps in, what connects us to want to do something bigger than ourselves?